Hi everyone, and welcome to our winter series talks. So thank you so much for joining WAAC for our Alpine stories, and tonight we are with Mikaela, who we will introduce in a minute. But lovely to see you all here tonight. If you missed our last talk, we had an excellent talk a couple of weeks ago about diversity in mountain sports, and I really highly recommend you check out that discussion. You can find that on our website. For those that don't know about us, we are a community supporting women to have adventures in the Alpine environment. And this time last year, we were in Hemsedal, and you can see a picture from there, bottom left, back when we could get together in big groups out in the mountains. Very exciting. Little did we know then what was to come. But yeah, we run skills workshops on weeks. So you can see there, we had skills workshops in ice climbing for beginners all the way through to advanced climbers. We did cross-country skiing, we did ski touring, we had avalanche workshops, and then we do the same sort of thing in summer when we get together as well. So skills workshops around alpine skills, and also then venturing out into the mountains in groups. And obviously when we can't do all of those things, we are here with you at home, and hoping to bring some joy and sharing some adventure and keeping that spirit alive. So with that in mind, I've just got some of the boring stuff to say. I'm sure you guys all know this by now. We used to have this sliding because I think Zoom etiquette was kind of pretty new last year, but now I think we're all used to kind of an online life. But just to say, you will have noticed that we will have muted you and also turned off your videos, and that's just so that it's not distracting for our speakers, so that there aren't pets or children or other halves running around in the background distracting them, and also just the noise. But you will get an opportunity to speak, don't worry. So during the Q&A session at the end, you're more than welcome to raise your hand and say you'd like to ask a question, and then we'll take you through how to do that. You can either do that in the chat if you're a little bit shy, or if you'd like to say hello in person, then you can absolutely switch on your video and switch on your mic and actually ask your own question in person. And just to say that all the talks are recorded and publicly available, just so that you're aware, we're currently live on Facebook in our private group. And that's it for our etiquette. And now, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jenny, who's going to introduce Mikaela.
Thanks, Louise. Welcome, everyone. Great to have you here. So we're absolutely thrilled to have Mikaela talk with us this evening. She's going to share some amazing adventures from Slovenia. Mikaela is a DV leader, an outdoor instructor, and a former teacher from she lives in South Wales now, and she's also working towards her international mountain leader. We were just chatting before this, and unfortunately her final assessment has been put off due to COVID, but Mikaela has made her way really successfully through the scheme, and it's a great working scheme to have. So I'm sure if you've got any questions about becoming an IML, do ask them at the end, and that might be why you joined us tonight. So yeah, welcome. So without further ado, Mikaela, do you want to turn on your video and mic, and we'll get cracking with your talk. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm just going to see if I can take control of this. I think I'm in control. So thanks very much to the Women's Alpine Adventure Club for inviting me to come and speak with you this evening. It's a real privilege to have been asked, and I've been tuning into some of the other talks that we've had, and I think I've got some pretty big mountain boots to fill this evening, but I'm going to do my best, and hopefully I've got some fun things to share with you, and also some useful tips and hints about going to Slovenia, but also about the IML process and becoming an international mountain leader. So this is me in my normal life, every day, Mikaela. So I am, like Jenny said, I'm a freelance instructor. So I work a lot with Duke of Edinburgh groups. I take groups climbing. Bottom right there is me with the Weatherman Walking show, where we took Derek Brockway, the Welsh weatherman, scrambling and climbing around the Gower coast, and overseas expeditions as well. it's lots of nice, smiley, happy days like the top photo, but the middle bottom photo is also what it's like. So sitting, sheltering behind dry stone walls and waiting for DOV teams to make sure they're all okay on horrible, wet, drainy, rainy days. So that's my day-to-day work that I get up to in the UK and overseas. But I also live a bit of a dual life where I spend a lot of time in Slovenia. So Slovenia is one of my favourite places. It's a home from home, and I spend generally a few months a year out there. And you can see from this map where it is. So it borders Italy, Austria, Hungary, Croatia, and it's got a teeny tiny bit of seacoast, but it's mostly mountains, and it's for a really small country. It has a lot of mountains, so it has 3 ranges really. So it's got the Julian Alps, which are the ones that most people know of, the Kamnik Alps, and the Karavanke Ridge, which borders Austria. And I'll come back to that in a second with a more detailed map to kind of show you where they are. But Slovenia, given its size, has a real history of mountaineering and climbing. I like to joke that everyone in Slovenia is born with a climbing harness on, and you shouldn't be surprised if you're mountaineering in Slovenia and you're passed by elderly people in their Sunday best just out for a stroll, and you're there in your full climbing gear, because that's just their way of life. It's so ingrained in their culture that you just see so many people out and enjoying the mountains, which is why I love it so much. And they're also a big player in the elite mountaineering world too. So they have, Slovenian mountaineers have won 8 Piolet d'Ors since it was first awarded in 27 years since it's been running. So that's the Golden Axe Award, which is awarded to exceptional achievements in mountaineering around the world. And they've won it 8 times out of 27. So that's pretty incredible. Most recently, Alice Chesson and Lucas Strajar in 2019 won it with Tom Livingston for their ascent of Latok. They were first to reach its peak via the North Face. And also sport climbing, Janja Garnbret. She is just a powerhouse and it's incredible. She has been in 31 World Cups and she has only missed the podium 4 times. So she is just incredible too. So if you're looking for people to kind of go and read more about after, then Janja Garnbret is definitely one, and she's done some really awesome videos too recently of her adventures. So this is me. I love Slovenia so much that I found a Slovene and married one. So this is me with my partner Zlatko and our adventure buddy Bella the dog. So she comes with us on pretty much all our adventures, and this is one of our favourite winter walks that is also fairly dog friendly. If you've got a dog that's used to the mountains, caveat, don't go taking your little comfy cozy dog up to Velika Mojstrovka, because it's probably not going to have a good time. But we love it, and we try and get out as much as we can. And this walk, actually, you can get up. One of the things that's great about this particular area is you can get up really high from the road, so you don't have to do a massive valley walk-in. I'm going to talk more about valley walk-ins as the talk goes on, but you'll find that Slovenia has big ascents. Most of the ascents are from the valley floor, so this one's great because you can park a bit higher and just get out for an afternoon or a morning rather than a full-on kind of mountain epic every day. So that's one of our kind of favorite places to go. Oh, I skipped over that one, didn't I? Let's go back. There we go. So this is me. So I said I love Slovenia so much that I married one. So this was at our wedding, which was on Vršič, and that's one of the mountain passes in Slovenia. So I really do have just a big attachment to these places and these mountains, and they're super special to me and to us. So this is another little map to show you where the mountains are spread out. It's a bit misleading because it makes it look like the rest of Slovenia is flat, but it's really not. So you've got in the top left-hand corner, on the border with Italy, you've got the Julian Alps, and then above that, you've got the Karavanke Ridge. So the Karavanke Ridge then runs along the top border and joins up with the Kamnik Alps, which are in the top right there. And they kind of then merge together. But the rest of the country is also very hilly. If it was in the UK, it would be classed as mountains pretty much throughout the whole of the country. But because it's not, the rest of them have just kind of shown as flat. Looks like it's flat savanna in this map. It's really not. So there's plenty to explore. Even if you're into mountain biking, for example, there's so much that you can do in the rest of the country as well, that it's really worth kind of exploring. But we're going to focus on the Julian Alps, the Karavanke Ridge and the Kamnik Alps because it's an Alpine talk. So we're going to focus on those areas. So what have I been up to recently? So this is me with our little baby girl, and she looks thrilled to be out in the mountains, lugged around in a backpack, but that is the life she has been born into. So she is already enjoying the alpine environment and getting out with us. So we were really lucky. We had Isabella last March, just as lockdown was announced, and you know, you have all these plans of mountain adventures and things that you want to go and do and things that you want to go and do together, and one, having a baby kind of puts that all into perspective, and then two, lockdown happens. So for a while we didn't get to do very much at all, although we did set ourselves a challenge of walking every single footpath from our front door, which we have now achieved, and that was quite a fun adventure. But we were lucky in August, when the restrictions were eased, we were able to get out to Slovenia, obviously to see family, but also to have some fun in the mountains, because while you're there, it would be rude not to. So we strapped her into the rucksack and we got out to some family-friendly alpine walks. So if you've got little ones, but you're looking for an alpine adventure to do together, this is a really great walk, Slovenia Spitze, and we saw lots of little ones who were walking on this route with their parents, and it's good because you start high, you get incredible views. It's got little tiny bits of easy scrambling just over some little rock steps, and then you get to this amazing kind of pinnacle where you can look out from the edge of the ridge over the whole Julian Alps. So for a walk to do with a family, I don't think you can get much better than this in the alpine environment. Oh, and this is me when I was pregnant. So yeah, what have I been up to recently? Also this. Should have put them the other way around, really, shouldn't I? Spoiler alert. So yeah, this was me in the winter, December. And again, I was pretty determined that I wanted to get as many mountains in as I could, because without knowing COVID was coming, I figured that there weren't going to be many mountains in my very close future. So in December, I was like, right, let's get out there and go and do some snowshoeing, because I was preparing for my International Mountain Leader winter assessment. So I did my summer assessment when I was 12 weeks pregnant, and eating jam straight from the jar with a spoon to get me through, and that was in the Pyrenees. And then for your winter assessment, you have to go somewhere else, obviously. And my winter assessment was originally booked in for Bavaria. That was cancelled, and then I booked in for France, and that was cancelled. But we went out to Slovenia to get some snowshoeing in, and being quite pregnant, I figured it was a good idea to try and practice some client walks. So this was on one of my recce's for a potential client walk with Bump. And it was really great. If you're interested in reading more about that, I wrote an article for TGO magazine, the Great Outdoors magazine, on that trip. So you can certainly find that and read more about that trip if you're interested in those walks. And this was another one that we did that was a potential client walk too. The great thing about Slovenia is, although you have to start from the valley for a lot of the walks, they have a really great hut network. So the huts in Slovenia are called koča. So you can see in the top there, this is koča na Mangatskem sedlu. So it's the koča of Mangat saddle. And Mangat's the name of the mountain, and it's on the saddle, hence the name. So koča means cottage, so rather than huts they call them cottages, but as you can see they're quite substantial, and they are really well equipped. If you've stayed in huts across Europe, it's a really similar setup where they'll have live-in guardians, a lot of them, not all of them, and you generally go and stay in a dorm, or you can get a private room and you get a choice of one meal for dinner, and that's what you're getting. and breakfast and things like that is pretty basic, but it's really just what you need to be able to spend a few days up high. So having to start from the valley, because there's only 2 ski lifts in the whole of the Julian Alps, if you start from the valley, you can walk up, spend a few days at the huts, and go out and explore some of the surrounding peaks. So that's the way that most people do it. So you don't start from the valley every day, you go up and then you stay high, and explore what you want to, and then come back down. They're particularly important in the Julian Alps because wild camping is forbidden. So that's a really important point to make, because they take it really seriously, for conservation reasons, and because I think it's been abused quite a lot in the past. They now have a law against wild camping in the Julian Alps. And they do enforce it, and you'll get fined and you'll get asked to leave. So respect the culture that they have there, and stay in the huts instead, because they're really reasonably priced, and they're lovely. So why wouldn't you want to stay in a lovely hut? They also have really good bodies too. So if you don't want to stay in a hut, then you could use their network of bodies as well. And some of them are like little kind of space capsules. They're amazing. So and then kind of works of art in their own right. So you could go and stay in them too, which is well worth it. And lastly, so this is one of the few places where you can get a lift, Canine. So for my little girl's 6-month birthday, we got the lift up and went for a walk around Canine, and here we are having a little snack break at just above 2,000 meters. So this was a really special day out for us, and it's a great place to go, again, for family-friendly Alps. Canine, you get out of a ski lift, and in the summer, you're just into kind of proper, kind of rough mountain terrain straight away. So if you're trying out with kids and you think you want to get them used to being in that environment where there's kind of scree slopes everywhere and loose rock, that sounds delightful, doesn't it? If you want to take your kids to loose rock and scree slopes, here's your place. But it's a really great kind of training ground, is what I'm saying. And there's some really easy ferrata there as well. We didn't do it on that day, obviously, but you can go and do that too. And the ferrata takes you to a window through the rock, which is really cool. So highly recommend that as a place to go. So where did it all begin? Falling in love with a place. So it's really easy to fall in love with the mountains, isn't it? Wherever you kind of go somewhere new, you're like, oh, I'm in love, I want to move here, I'm going to live here forever. But genuinely, I went to Slovenia. I've been going to Slovenia probably off and on regularly for the last 7 or 8 years, something like that, and this was one of my first proper trips out there, and I did a 4-day crossing along the Karavanke Ridge. You can wild camp on the Karavanke, so we took full advantage of that, and this was the view from our wild camp, waking up and seeing the Julian Alps in their full glory. So this is looking from the Karavanke Ridge to the Julian Alps, and it's just like a little island poking out of the cloud inversion, and it just kind of blew me away how perfect it all looked. And you can see in this photo Triglav. which is Slovenia's highest mountain. And so it's just poking its head out there and tempting you to go and explore. But love can be hard. So yeah, you fall in love and you think, oh, I'm gonna have all these wonderful adventures in the mountains and it's gonna be amazing all the time and I just love it. This is me not loving it. So I do say to my partner to take more photos of me when I'm being grumpy, because it looks like I'm just having an amazing time all the time in most of our photos, and that's just not true. And I think that social media has a lot to answer for with that, because it's not all sunshine and roses. It can be just not very fun. And so this was actually on the trip when I was pregnant in December. And I planned this walk, and it started off with walking up the side of a piste, which is never that fun anyway. And I was really slow, and I was feeling sluggish. I was feeling like an elephant trudging up a hill in my snowshoes with this big belly. And we got to where we were going to go kind of exploring into the kind of, I say backcountry, but just off piste a bit. And looking around, I just did not feel okay about it. So I was concerned about the risk of avalanche, and I was also concerned about the risk of Bresna, which is sinkholes. And I'll talk more about those later, but Bresna basically translates as without floor. So you can imagine walking into one of those isn't really what you want. So I was feeling a bit grumpy. It's one of those situations where you have to really think about, why am I being grumpy? What's the matter? And in this case, it's not you, it's me. So it's not the mountains, it's me. So this is me talking to the mountains. Love can be hard, but it's not you, it's me. So I hadn't planned a great day on that day. And I hadn't accounted for the risks that we just don't have in the UK mountains. So the sinkholes, you have little sinkholes, but they're generally marked on the map. You don't have big gaping holes that you can fall into. And I think I hadn't prepared myself for how nervous actually doing that while pregnant would make me. I think that made me a lot more cautious. But in the end, we managed to pick a different route. So we sat down after I'd finished being grumpy and got the maps out, and I planned a new route, and it was amazing. And it turned out to be a really great walk. So it meant, because we got the lift and then walked up the piste. So again, if you're thinking of doing this and you've not done loads of snowshoeing, it's quite a good option. So this was on the other side of Canine, on the Italian side. The snow line was really high last winter. So you couldn't hit snow until you were about 1,800 meters. So starting from the valley floor in your big winter boots doesn't seem very appealing to get all that ascent to then only have snow on the very top. So being able to get up on the lift there was really really good in the end. But yeah, I was a bit grumpy about it all. So how to become a Slovenian. The relationship is developing here, and I'm thinking, yeah, you know what, I really love Slovenia and I want to do more adventures. And my partner said, well, to be a Slovenian, you have to climb Triglav. And I was like, okay, well, let's do that then. So I had done the Conville Trust Alpine course. So if you're just starting out in the Alpine world, I highly, highly recommend looking into it. It's for people under 30. So I just scraped in on the tail end there. And it was a few years ago now. And I loved it. It was great. It was in the French Alps, based out of Chamonix, and you learn crevasse rescue and loads of really important skills that need lots and lots of practice to then have a safe journey in the mountains, and know how to stay safe in an alpine environment, which is really important, because you turn up on the first day of the Conville Trust course and they're like, empty your pack, and your pack's set up for Scottish winter, and they're like, no, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, fast and light. What? So yeah, it's quite a different beast. So I highly recommend it if you're just starting out. So anyway, I'd done this course and I was feeling psyched, and I was like, yeah, let's go and do Triglav's North Face. Zlatko would describe himself as a retired alpinist, and I didn't realize at the time that there's a reason that he's a retired alpinist. We didn't kind of delve into that so much, and I quickly started to learn why, because the Slovenian Alps are quite scary, but for lots of people, that's the kind of excitement that you're looking for in an adventure. And that was me. I was like, yes, I want that. So we planned the route up Slovenia's, the Slovenian route, which is the classic route up the North Face. It's the easiest route up the North Face. And we thought that would be a good place to start. So it was on the proviso that I would lead it all. And I was like, yes, I'm psyched. I'm going to lead it all. It's going to be great. Let's do it. So we did some training. I'd already been doing the training, and I'd done quite a lot of multi-pitch stuff around and about, and we'd done the Conville Trust course, and we went to Vipava, which is the photo on the left. Vipava is Zlatko's home valley, and it's really great for sport climbing. It's so much fun. The sport climbing there is amazing, and there's just one long kind of escarpment that just goes on and on and on. And there's loads of really cool multi-pitch, and there's a bit of via ferrata, and there's a bit of stuff that you can do to practice your alpine skills, and it's just generally a really great place to hang out. So we were there doing some multi-pitch on that day, and I particularly wanted to practice my abseiling because it was a skill that I felt like I hadn't done that much of recently. So we did some multi-pitch and we did some abseiling, and it was great fun, and we had a wonderful day. Fast forward to the picture on the right, and that is me escaping off Triglav's North Face. So we set off on the morning that we planned to do the route, an alpine start. So we started off at, I think it was probably 3 a.m. To walk to the bottom of the route, and we did that, and I was feeling quite confident. We did a few easy climbs to get to the base of the route, which was kind of just above the limit of where I would choose to climb without a rope. So we just kind of scrambled it, got to the bottom of the route, and we're like, yeah, we're making great time, it's going to be great. And started up this chimney. So I packed my rack thinking about the training that I'd done in Vipava on the left. As you can see, the rock's quite different. And I also based it off UK mountains and the stuff that I'd learned on the Conville Trust course. So I had a small rack, and I had quite a mix. I had a mix of basically wires, micro wires, and I had some kind of hexes and things as well, which just were useless. It was all useless. So I started climbing up this chimney on the first pitch, and I was like, oh, there's not much gear. Never mind, it's easy climbing. Let's keep going. So found a way to set up my first belay, brought my partner up, did the same thing again, started to get a bit scarier. And just less and less gear, and like you try and place gear and the rocks would pop, and there was just loads of crumbly stuff, or it was too small for micro wires, or it was too big for the stuff that I had, and you're kind of passing pittons in the rock and you're thinking, oh, maybe I should have bought pittons. Never mind, let's keep climbing. Yeah, this is the chimney that I was going up. So, you know, looking back at it now, I'm like, well, that looks well within my climbing ability. Why was I so scared? I also had a heavy backpack because I was still carrying too much stuff. And I wasn't that used to climbing in boots as well. So that also kind of put me off. And generally being somewhere new on a big route. It was my first big mountain route. And I was leading it, and the only thing that had to guide me was this topo on the right. And I'd never used anything like this before. So I had in the past looked through the kind of guidebooks, and I thought I'd learnt the symbols, and I'd hand drew it out, and labelled it all. I don't know where that piece of paper is now, gone. But I hand drew it and I labelled it, and I did my own notes. And I still felt like I wasn't on the right line. I still felt like I was off route. And we did about 7 or 8 pitches, and I got pretty upset. Made myself safe, brought my partner up, and then just had a little cry because I was like, I just don't know where I'm going. It doesn't feel right. I don't think we're on the right line. And it's nearly lunchtime and we've only done 8 pitches, and we should be way higher than we already are. We're going to get benighted. And I don't know what to do. And my partner, being a chilled Slovene that he is, most Slovenes are pretty chilled, was like, whatever you want to do. If we go up, we go up, or we can abseil back down. It's like, but the chimney's so chossy, it feels like death. I don't want to go down there. I've just spent 4 hours coming up it. And he's like, well, if we're crag fast, we can call a helicopter. I was like, no, we're not crag fast. I don't know what to do. And anyway, we had a snack and it was all right. Most of the time it's all right after a snack, isn't it? So we had a snack, and I decided, no, we're not crag fast. We know what to do. I'm just annoyed because we aren't going to make the summit. So we made the decision to abseil back down with our tails between our legs. So that's what we did. And at the time I was really upset and kicking myself and feeling like I wasn't a very good alpine climber at all. But actually making that decision showed that we did know when we were out of our depth. So I knew a lot more than I thought I knew. And my partner already knew, but he was confident that we would make the right decision to turn back. And yeah, so we did. We abseiled back down, and it was all right. And as we were abseiling back down, this helicopter flew into sight, and I was like, oh, to the rescue. But it wasn't for us, so it's okay. But it's also okay because the person that we rescued we know was okay, so that's fine. But they were crag fast higher up, so it kind of reinforced the decision that we'd made a sensible decision, and we're able to make a decision whilst we still could rescue ourselves, and not getting into a position where it was no longer possible to rescue ourselves. So after some reflection, although it was type 3 fun, the kind of fun where you need a really long break after trying it again, it ended up being a really great adventure, and a really great learning experience for me, about the Slovenian Alps. So what I learned about Slovenian mountains as a physical thing on that trip was that they're really crumbly in the summer, and take pittance. So 2 really important things, because if you're there, especially at the beginning of summer, this was midsummer, but if you're there at the beginning of the summer, then you'll hear the rocks exploding, from where over the winter they've been freezing and thawing and freezing and thawing, and the cracks get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then when spring comes and they really warm up, they just explode. So you hear that kind of echoing around, and that's what you're climbing through, especially on the easier routes. So the problem is, I think it's similar to when you're learning trad climbing in the UK, that you're on the easier routes, and actually some of them are just not that nice. And you get onto the harder stuff and you're like, oh, this is what it's about. This is amazing. So I think that route, the Slovenian route, if you're a winter mountaineer, it's a really popular route to go up in the winter because the gullies all get frozen and everything gets kind of locked in place. But we didn't see anyone climbing it on that day in the summer, and I think that's why, because it's just a crumbly, deathy chimney. So yeah, but the rest of the North Face routes look epic. However, I am not that skilled to be able to attempt those. So next time I go, I will be seeking out some more experienced partners to explore those routes. Oh, and this is me after we got back down, and I just kind of jumped in a stream because it was boiling hot, and all the gears just kind of strewn about, and I was just having a bit of a moment there, I think, because it was still beautiful, and the day was still epic in its own way, and I wouldn't have such great stories if I hadn't have done it. But it's definitely a big learning experience for me in my alpine life. But this is me most of the time in the Slovenian mountains. So happy Ferrata faces. So after that experience, I decided that I needed more general experience in the Slovenian mountains before trying any kind of crazy North Face routes again. So we set out on a 3-day Via Ferrata fun fest. And it was just amazing. So we decided we wanted to do, well, I decided I wanted to do Triglav, but I wanted to do it a different way. So in the same way, you don't necessarily want to take the easiest routes up the big mountains anywhere. You know, I wanted to go somewhere slightly different, and not just for kind of tourist track up. And so we planned this 3-day journey, and it involved a lot of Ferrata. So I think on this day we did 12 hours of Ferrata. So for those of you that are new to the sport, it's fixed cables that are bolted into the rock, and you have a special harness attachment that has 2 carabiners and a kind of dynamic cable in between them that you clip as you go along, and it's really fun. It's super fun. And like for me, having just a really fun day out in the mountains in kind of high places that feel remote with a bit of exposure and a bit of kind of shaky moments, like that's a great day out. And you can see how much I'm loving it there. That's genuine happy faces. I really recommend that some of the Ferrata routes in Slovenia, however, do take a little rack with you and a rope, because you never quite know where there's going to be cables that are no longer attached to a rock, because like I say, it freezes and thaws, and so if you're there early in the summer, then they might not have had people kind of going and maintaining them yet, so you might need to use a little bit of rope just to kind of get over a tricky section. Also, a lot of the Slovenian routes, they're marked as walking routes, but they don't blink what would be marked as scrambling in the UK. So be prepared for some scrambling, but it's super fun. It's great scrambling, but it would be marked as a walking route on the map. Ferrata would be marked slightly different, but the scrambling is marked as a walking route. So we did that, and it was really, really fun. This is me kind of on that same journey, just trotting along one of the ridges, and again, this is me in my element, where I feel at home, because it's not really technical terrain. It's kind of scrambly, it's super fun, and you've got some narrow bits where you feel a bit scared, but generally it's a great day out. The way marking is also super clear, so because it's not one of the mountaineering routes, it's classed as a walking route with some Ferrata, it's way marked, so you'll have kind of paint daubs on the rocks at various intervals that kind of help you to know that you're still on track, which can be reassuring, but obviously don't rely on them, because you never know, there might be some that are not clear or hidden, especially in winter. You can't rely on them at all because the snow will be above, but in the summer you can rely on them a little bit. And this is one of the sections of Ferrata. So you can see there's a little pink circle around one of the windows that you come through. So you go up the kind of other side of the mountain, and then you go through a window. You thread the eye of a needle, they call it, and you go through the window and out the other side. And then you wiggle your way up to the summit of Prisank, and then you go across to Zadnji Prisank. and you kind of come around the back then and through another window. So it's double fun. It's so much fun. And then you kind of wiggle your way down one of the kind of big cracks, and then onto a footpath and trot along the footpath. But that was my favourite section. It's just brilliant. It's some of the best via ferrata in that area, I think. It's really, really fun. And there's a great hut at the end of it as well. And then we finally, after 2 days of via ferrata, made it to the summit of Triglav. And we celebrated with a traditional summit tradition of being spanked with a length of rope. So that is true. It is a real tradition. I didn't just ask Zlatko whether he made it up. I asked a few other people on the summit, and it was confirmed to me that this is indeed a summit tradition, and it's essential if you want to be a Slovenian. So there I am, being christened as a Slovenian on the top of Triglav. And you can see there's like a little metal, like looks like a baked bean can next to our feet. So the reason that's there is because normally they have a giant pod on the top of Triglav, and it's quite iconic. And it's been there forever. And for one time that we go up, they'd had this massive kind of expedition to take it down to refurbish it, so it wasn't there. So they put a miniature one in its place. So that's that. And that's the view from the summit of Triglav. So you can see just how epic it is. It's stunning, but also lots of scree. So if you like scree, it's great. Who doesn't like scree? So from the summer onto winter, we were looking for some easy days out with our snowshoes. Velika Planina is in the Kamnik Alps, and it is a great easy day out, but not on a day like this. If the winds are strong, then you will get battered. And so again, when I was telling my friend about this talk and about what I should call it, he told me that I should call this talk "The Many Ways Slovenia's Kicked My Ass." And I think he's probably right. So this is way number 3 that Slovenia's kicked my ass, I think, so far on the talk. Yeah, snowshoeing. So a big part of the International Mountain Leader qualification is snowshoeing. The foundations of the qualification are built on kind of being in rolling alpine terrain in winter is the terms that they use. So if you have to use the tools and techniques of alpinism, then it's out of the scope of the award. So I was looking for places that were in the mountains that gave you a great day out, but that were not going to kind of dabble into the realms of mountaineering. And in Slovenia, that's a bit trickier than some of the other places because the snow line's quite high. So Velika Planina is a big plateau that has kind of nice rolling dips and curves. So it's the perfect place to go for some snowshoeing. And on a normal day, it is absolutely stunning. It's full of these little old shepherd's huts that you can actually stay in the summer. You can't stay in them in the winter, or most of them you can't. But again, there's a great culture at the top, so you can stay in the culture. Yeah, on this day, the wind threw me flat on my face like 3 times before we decided to call it a day and go and have some hot chocolate in the hut. But it's generally a really great winter day out. Just check the wind before you go, because it was not much fun. Well, it was fun in retrospect. Again, type 2 fun that time, not quite type 3. Yeah, really kind of stunning place in summer, and in the spring it's just full of wildflowers. Like it's so stunning. I really recommend going there and exploring. And from there we did a few more kind of single days out, and then year before last I wanted to do a multi-day snowshoeing trip in Slovenia. And we were based out there for the whole winter, and so we decided we were going to do a walk from Bohin Lake. Bohin's a really popular place to go, and it's also where you'll find the other lift of the Julian Alps. So the one lift is Kneen and the other lift is Vogel. We didn't use it for this walk, but you could have done, but we didn't. because we started on the other side of the valley. And I planned this walk again thinking about this rolling alpine terrain. So I wanted to have the views of the bigger mountains whilst being in kind of the lower foothills, basically. And it was stunning. It was really beautiful. But on this first day, it was the first kind of window that we'd had that winter where the avalanche conditions had started to ease. So I'd been watching the snow for weeks, waiting for a window where it was safe. And obviously you can only manage risk, and it would never be completely safe. But this was the window that I was looking for, where the avalanche risk had dropped considerably, and I felt like the snow had consolidated enough for us to go out and explore. So we did. We set off, and on the way up I was thinking, oh gosh, we're so slow on snowshoes. We're going for this bothy, which is known as a winter room in Slovenia, and it's going to be full of ski tourers because they're so speedy, and they're going to be there before us, and we're going to just be like cramped into the corner by the door, and it's just going to be so full. And we got there and there was nobody there. It was empty, and it was like nobody had been there the entire winter. The snow was halfway up the door, and under the snow was ice. And so we had to hack away to be able to get in. It took us about an hour and a half of digging to get into the winter room. I have a picture of that. So here is Zlatko digging his way into the winter room. And we took turns and swapped when one of us got tired, and eventually managed to hack our way in. Those marks on the door aren't from us hacking in, I have to say. We were neater than that. But they must have been from a previous season. But yeah, it took us a long time to get in. And when we finally did get in, it was full of mice. So it really is like a full body experience. All the mice were overwintering there. So we got to spend a night enjoying it with them. But it's still enjoyable. And look at his little face. When you put on warm socks, you just look so happy. Warm, dry socks, nothing beats it. We then went out for a lovely winter night stroll around from the just from the bothy up kind of into the forested hills that you could see behind there a little bit, and it was stunning. It was such a still night, and it was incredibly beautiful. And this was the next day, which was like walking through custard in the desert. So it was really warm. It was so warm. And so at one point I was walking just with my t-shirt and my soft shell trousers and my snowshoes, and the snow was like snow when it's kind of gets to that sort of sticky, really kind of, it wants to melt but it's not quite melting sort of stage, and it was just making these custardy balls around my snowshoes, and it took us so long to get to the hut, but it was beautiful. The rolling hills were exactly what I was looking for. You had these kind of beautiful dips and curves that you could explore, and do some like fun bum sliding down into some of them, and just like full on mountain fun. And again, we didn't see anyone, and I think that's one of the things about Slovenian mountains is, especially in winter and especially on snowshoes, like they're just not as busy as the other alpine areas, and it is changing now, and more people are going, partly because of probably talks like this from people like me, but it's you know, it's just really feels remote in the best possible way. And we had the whole day to ourselves, you know, looking at animal tracks. And one of the great things about snowshoeing is it slows you down, and you really kind of immerse yourself in nature in a way that perhaps you don't when you're kind of bombing it down the hill on skis. And you know, I just really love that about it. You really kind of start to take notice of the animals and things that are still around in the winter, because they are there, and you get to experience that a little bit more. So we did lots of that. And then on the last day, we decided we couldn't resist a little cheeky peak. So although it was rolling terrain, we decided to sneak in Bogatine, which I would suggest if you're just starting out in winter alpine environment, this is a great peak to go for. I wouldn't do the whole journey that we did just to get to this peak. You can just go straight up from the valley and stay in the hut, which I'll show you in the next slide. And then you can get to this peak really easily and do it in a half day. So you could stay at the hut, have a lovely time in the hut, have some really great jota, which is like a Slovenian stew. And then in the morning, get up, do this peak, go back to the hut for lunch and then go down. Like, just what a lovely day. And you can see as well that the views are incredible, but it's a really great one for just honing your skills. So you do need crampons, you do need to know how to use an axe. You do need to know how to kind of ascend and descend steep slopes in snow carefully, and you do need to be able to look at the way that the snow has fallen and decide. So we decided not to kind of go up the North Ridge because the snow looked dodgy, so we kind of skirted under and came up the back, and it's a small enough peak that you can do that and you can make those decisions. So for training it's great, so I would really recommend it. And also there's a myth that the golden goat of Slovenia hid its treasure under this mountain, so you might find some treasure as well. And this is a view from that hut. So this is Dom na Komni hut, and it looks out over Bohin. And this was the view from the dining room as we were eating breakfast. So like, how can you not be psyched when you wake up in the morning and you see that and you're just like, yeah, let's get out for a day and go and enjoy the mountains. It's just really stunning. And it's kind of right on the edge of the Julian Alps. So you get that view of the mountains, but you also can kind of look out over some of the rest of Slovenia a little bit as well. So it's really beautiful. And from there, I decided I was going to ditch Zlatko, my partner, who comes on most of my Slovenian adventures with me, because part of developing towards an award is going solo. Really, when you're with someone who you're very comfortable with, and especially me being with Zlatko, he is a native Slovenian, so obviously there's certain things where I can end up kind of using him as a bit of a crutch for my skills, and I decided that when we were based out there for the season that I was going to go out and do more on my own. And I started really easily. So we lived in Ljubljana, which is the capital, and you can get out to some great hills for day walks from there that are not quite in the mountains, you know, they're on the edge. So again, if we're thinking about that rolling alpine terrain, Blegosh, which is this hill that I went on as one of my first solo walks, is a really great one. And this was great because someone had already cut a track for me, so I didn't have to break trail. So I was grinning all the way to the top on this walk because I didn't see really anyone. You can just see someone in the distance there, but I didn't see many people at all, just me and Bella, my adventure dog. And we just had a wonderful day. Obviously, when I'm planning solo adventures, I'm thinking about the risk of, if I were to get caught in an avalanche, I'm on my own. So I plan winter solo days that are well within my skill set, and well within my abilities to be able to read the route. And I also plan them a lot shorter than I would perhaps plan them if I was out with one of my other kind of adventure buddies, because it just gives me time to, one, soak it all in, and two, to really think about the decisions that I'm making. So this is a really great kind of easy day out that just kind of gave me the feel for what I was looking to do more of. And it was wonderful. And I did another solo walk to Ratitovets, which again is a great option from Ljubljana. It's beautiful in the summer and in the winter. We spend a lot of our New Year's in the cottages. So some cottages, most of them are closed over winter, but they have winter rooms, but some of them open for New Year. So you go and have a party, and then you go and explore the mountains, and they have a polka band, and it's just loads of fun. And we went to one on Ratitavets, or near Ratitavets. It wasn't the hut that was right on the top there, but it's just so much fun. The Slovenian parties that I've been to with polka are just some of the best mountain gatherings that you can have when we're allowed to do that again. I can't wait. Yeah, this was one on my own. And you can see here a perfect example of a bresna, so a sinkhole, and it's big. But these are not the ones that you really need to be worried about, because it's so big that it would take a lot of snow to fill it. Generally it's kind of, I mean, I still wouldn't want to fall in it, but you'd have to really not be looking where you're going to fall in that one, because it's pretty obvious. So bresna without floor, so they're sinkholes. So the Julian Alps are limestone, and so are the Kamnik Alps, and so are most of the mountains in Slovenia. It's limestone, and so they have lots of big caves, because the water runs through and eventually it erodes and it makes big caves. A very simplistic explanation, but it means that there's these big sinkholes, and you can find them pretty much anywhere in the Julian Alps or across the Kamnik Alps, and they are a hazard, and they are something you need to be aware of, and they're not always marked on the map. So if you're going off piste, then it's worth chatting to the people in the huts, or some other locals. You know, if you're going to a gear shop, for example, to rent gear, then just chat to people about your routes, because you know, you might find out that actually the reason people don't do that route is because it's full of sinkholes, and you might fall in. Don't do that, because it will ruin your day. It's just a really good example of one of the big ones, and they are quite spectacular when you see them, but the smaller ones are the ones that you want to look out for. I've never heard of a snowshoer falling in one, but I have heard of skiers falling in, because you're just going at that much faster pace. So yeah, when you're out solo, friendly little warnings are useful. So this was actually on my way down from Ratitavets. And again, I'd been watching the avalanche forecast, and this avalanche was probably about a week old. So it's not fresh. But if I'd have been going up and I'd seen that and it had been fresh, then I would have really questioned what I was doing with my day, because you see these little ones lower down and they're really, really good warning signs. I mean, if you see one of these happening, then you've probably picked the wrong day to be out, and it's time to turn back. But just, it was a good reminder for me on my way back down, that even in the lower kind of reaches, in the lower mountains, there's definitely an avalanche risk there, and you need to be very wary, and you need to make sure you're using the resources to check the forecast, and keep yourself safe. So even when I'm out solo, I'm still wearing my transceiver, and making sure I'm doing all the things that I would do if I was with a group, but I have to be that bit more careful, because okay, I'm wearing my transceiver, but it's only good if someone knows what's happened and seen it. It's definitely something to just kind of be aware of all of those friendly little warnings around you, so that you don't get a kind of bigger incident later on in your day. On to, is this number 5 of how Slovenia has kicked my ass? I'm not sure. I've lost count. But this was one of the days when I decided it was going to be a solo day, but one of my friends wanted to come with me. So she is a skier, competent on-piste skier, hadn't done much in the backcountry, off-piste adventures, and hadn't done any mountaineering. So we started from one of the ski resorts that's closest to Ljubljana, and you can park really high, which is great because we like that. We don't have to walk from the valley, especially when the snow line's at 1800 meters again. And so we started high and set off on our day to go to Corin. And on the first part of the day, we're kind of just having a wonderful time, just kind of sprinting along. Really, we had made really good time. The snow was really compact and really well consolidated, and we just didn't need snowshoes. We were just kind of wandering along and having a lovely chat. And on the way down, we saw a guy who was like, "Oh, it's very windy up there." I was like, "Oh yeah, we know that, it's fine." And so we got up to the top. I was like, "Oh yeah, it's very windy, but it's lovely." So this is, oh yeah, okay, I'll show you that in a bit. So we got up to the top, and it was very windy, and decided to kind of continue along. We almost got benighted, and I'm going to come back to the story because I want to skip through the slides, and it's going to show you the distance that we were, because I've done some animation here that was in not the best place. So this was just when we kind of, it was only meant to be like a half day out, and we almost got benighted. So you can see where we are from the picture that I was taken, and that's where the après ski bar is, but I was desperately hoping that we were in at that point. But at that point we knew we were plain sailing. But anyway, we were back on the top. The wind had started to drop, and so we're sat on the top, and I was like, "Oh, the wind is dropping. This is amazing. Let's carry on with our day." And my friend was saying, "Yes, I'm still having a wonderful day. It's lovely, and we're still making good time." So I was like, "Great, let's carry on." So one thing that I probably wasn't prepared for, and I've learned to do much more effectively now, was to think about the direction of the wind and where it's going to blow all the snow. So we'd been walking on the side of a mountain that had been stripped of snow, which is why it was so lovely and easy to walk on. And then we got to the top, and it's still, you can see Bella is just sat on the top there, and it's lovely and consolidated. So we dropped down then onto the lee side of the mountain, and that's where the snow had been deposited. And we were walking along, and I don't actually have any photos of that because generally we don't take photos when stuff starts to go wrong. And especially as I was the one that was the responsible, more experienced person of the two of us, I felt responsible for my friend. And we got down onto this plateau. I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, it's still fine, but you know, it's taking us a lot longer because this windblown snow is now sitting on top of what was basically old rotten snow, and you're sinking through, and then there's the old kind of small scrubby pines that you find in this environment, and because it wasn't loads of snow, you can see there's not loads of snow that season, so you'd sink and your foot would get caught under a scrubby pine, and then you'd pull it out and you'd start again, and then you'd sink up to your hips and have to pull yourself out. And so we're kind of underneath this fairly steep slope, and I was starting to think, this isn't good. You know, we're in dangerous terrain here, and I really don't want to get avalanched, and I especially don't want my friend to get avalanched on her first winter mountaineering expedition out with me. So I made the call that we were going to abandon ship, and you can escape down to the valley. So I called my my partner, and I said, "Ask our cars at the ski resort, but can you please drive to the valley and come and pick us up, because we've had enough and we're coming down." So he started to set off to come and pick us up, and we started descending. I said to my friend, we discussed it, and I said, "Look, you know, I don't think there's any point in us carrying on. It's going to take us hours, and also the risk is just not something I want to take, so we're going to bail." And it's either we bail to the valley or we walk back the way we came, and then we'll definitely need the head torches in my rucksack. But if we go down to the valley now, we might get back when it's light. And so we started descending, and you know, sometimes you make these decisions and then everything comes into alignment. And we descended a short way, not quite back onto the plateau, and all of a sudden, like, we were on this better ground, and I could see a line through to where we wanted to go, that I judged was safe, but was a really low risk of avalanche coming from above, because it had all already thawed or had already come down, so there wasn't much above us, so I wasn't afraid of being caught in an avalanche from above. And so I made a decision that actually, I can see a way through, let's carry on. And so I phoned my partner back. I was like, actually, you don't need to come. He's like, right, okay, fine. And we carried on with our day, and that's when we made it to the picture that I showed you before. And it was, sun was setting, and we emerged back up near to the resort, but not quite at the resort, and the sun started to set, and it was like I'd planned it. It was like, oh yeah, I thought we wanted to be here for the sunset, didn't we? Isn't it amazing? And we got there, and we made it down to the Après ski bar just as it got dark, and it was all right. And anyway, this is my friend, and she looked very happy, so it's fine. This was after the sketchy bit, so she is still smiling, and she had a wonderful time, and I know that she's since joined one of the local mountaineering groups, so she's still getting out there, which is amazing. And I think being kind of open and honest about that experience after, and we chatted through it, and she was like, well, I had a great day out. I was like, okay, well, great. So in my head, all of this kind of stuff's going around, but actually we made some really good decisions again. But I should say, please don't carry your axe like this. It makes a really nice photo, but yeah, obviously that's not how we're walking along, like da, 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 with our axes, so don't do that. If you're not sure how to do it, then take a winter skills course, and someone will show you how to walk with your axe. But generally, jokes aside, we had an amazing day, and it was a near miss that we managed well, I think, in the end. That decision to bail again came through for me. So don't ever be afraid to bail, because generally it's still the sign of a good adventure. Oops, I've skipped ahead there. So that was in the Kamnik Alps, and I spent a lot of the early talk talking about the Julian Alps, but please don't forget the Kamnik Alps, because they are amazing. They're so much fun, and there's so much there, and they're really close to Ljubljana. So if you've got a short trip, they're great. So this picture of me on the left is me on Grintevet, which is the highest mountain in the Kamnik Alps. And it's not normally accessible in winter, because I tried to find a photo, but I didn't have one. The side that you go up is like a giant kind of cheese grater, like it's like a slab of cheese. So it's really prone to avalanches, because it just slides off. The snow just slides off. So on this winter, when there wasn't much snow, it was a great option for a winter ascent, because it was basically just crampons all the way, and it was great fun. And that's me doing an impression of a Grintevet, because I felt like Grintevet sounded like some kind of gremlin that lives in the mountains. So that's what I think it looks like. If you ever see one, tell me if it looks anything like that. And then on the right hand side is another great option for a kind of short day out. So if you're looking to kind of hone your alpine skills and you want some knife edge ridges, then this is a really great one, because it's only a very, very short section of ridge like this. So you can see my partner on it. It's really just as wide as you can walk, but it's probably only kind of, we were on that section for maybe 40 minutes or something like that, 45 minutes. And it's just a great way to practice and hone your skills. And then the rest of the day is kind of on much easier terrain. So if you're looking for kind of places to go where you think, I'm building my confidence, and I want to go out and have some winter experiences, but I don't want to have kind of big epic full days out, then this is a really great option as well, where you don't need an alpine start, and you can still get some exposure and some serious terrain for short periods. So yeah, it's like a little hit of espresso. Like you just get a little burst, and then you're back on kind of fairly safe terrain. So it's another great one. And just to finish up, this is my favorite view. I think this is one of my favorite photos that I've taken in Slovenia. It's just kind of shows the mountains in all their glory, and I would really just recommend that you go and explore and go there, because it's so beautiful, and they really are kind of you know, you'll notice that if you've been looking at the names and the heights as I've been going through, the heights of the mountains are not very big compared to other places. So if you're one of those people where you don't get out of bed unless it's over 2,000 meters, then you're going to not find much of that in Slovenia. You know, there's no high altitude stuff, but because there's only 2 lifts and there's only one in the Kamnik, then you do have big days, and when you get up high it feels remote, because there aren't lifts to get up there. So you know, when you do finally get up high, you feel like you're in, you know, any other big mountain range, and they're just perfect. I think I prefer them in winter. I think winter is just my favorite time to explore. So this is from a Yavcheva culture, so it brings us full circle. That's where we got married in one of the earlier slides, and this is when we'd snowshoed up to actually ask the cottage whether we could get married there, and I think they were a bit bewildered because we like arrived on snowshoes, and then we were talking about wedding planning. But it's just beautiful, and these are the 2 mountains from that view. Yeah, you know, I think we all have our kind of, like people have spirit animals, like we have our spirit mountains, and I think mine are definitely my favorite mountains are in Slovenia, and I always find myself coming back to them, and there's always more to explore, and there's always more fun to be had, and always more learning. You know, I've learnt my biggest lessons there, and so I think maybe that's why I feel so attached to them, because they made me into a better mountaineer and a better leader, as a result of all my various errors and misfortunes and great adventures. So thank you very much for listening. I don't know how long I've been blabbering on for, probably far too long. But if there's anyone left and you'd like to ask any questions, then feel free. Oh yeah, my tips, but yeah, perhaps we can just kind of quickly skim over those because I've been going on for far too long. They all kind of just summarize what I've been saying about the seriousness of the mountains, and some of the rules and that they have, and just give you a chance to see, kind of summarize what I've said about the adventures that you can have there. But I believe this talk is going to be available for you to view, so you can take a screenshot or go back and look at these later, and feel free to message me or ask me a question about it now. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mikaela. Don't worry, it was enthralling, and I think it doesn't matter how long you talk for, because it was just full of fantastic information and really great stories. So thank you so much for all the time that you put into that presentation, because I know a lot of effort went in on your Tuesday afternoons free from the baby. So thank you. We've got a few questions, like Mikaela said, this talk will be available on our website, and I write a little article to go with it, kind of summarising, so the top tips will be on there as well. So if you do need to shoot off, I absolutely understand, and you can always watch the Q&A back if you want to. So we have had a couple of questions come in. A couple of ladies on Facebook have asked you some questions. So Hattie says, you know, talk was fantastic, really inspiring, thank you. What month would you say was the best to go out and rock climb? She says she's not completely into the cold yet. But for sport climbing and stuff, when's best to go?
So it depends on which region you're looking to go for. So you could go in the summer into the Julian Alps and you'd find some really great options there. But I really like going kind of end of the summer. So if we're looking kind of towards September or even October, because the weather tends to be quite stable then, and it's also not so hot, especially if you're in Vipava, where I said I did some of my practice routes and where the great sport climbing is. You know, it can get to like 37 degrees, so it's really hot. And also some of the, I mean, in the Julian Alps, yeah, September's great, but you also need to be aware that the huts close in the autumn, so you need to kind of hit before then. So by October, a lot of the huts have started to close, so you won't be able to stay up. But if you go at kind of beginning of September, then they're generally still open. But yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities all year round. We've had some amazing climbing in the winter that's rock based, and in Vipava, that's a kind of great time to go, because in the summer there's definitely some additional hazards in that region. On the multi-pitch routes, there's some kind of plants that can give you a bit of a nasty rash that bloom kind of in the peak of the summer. So if you're going to go and do some of the multi-pitch routes there, then either go in the spring or towards the end of the summer, autumn or winter, because you all wear long sleeves and long trousers, but no one wants to do that in 37 degrees. So yeah, that was a bit.
No worries. And with, are there, you know, like in the Dolomites and that kind of the Eastern Alps, quite a lot of the time there's those summer afternoon thunderstorms. Does that happen in Slovenia as well? Yeah,
definitely. So in the peak of the summer, you will definitely get those afternoon storms. So that's one of the reasons I kind of like the autumn a little bit more, because like I said, the weather, that's kind of what I was touching on when I said the weather's more stable. So in the autumn, you're less likely to get that. So yeah, be aware that in the summer you will get afternoon thunderstorms, and so be off the hill by then.
Yeah, definitely. And another question from Elia about where are the best, and you've actually got it in your top tips, I think, but best resources in English to find info on climbing routes, because I know that there are sport climbing guidebooks now in multi-language, but I know it's sometimes challenging to get high mountain route descriptions in English sometimes.
Yeah. Freebie, which is in my top tips. So definitely that's where I get most of my resources from. And it also gives you, so it's a really amazing resource because it gives you routes, but people also kind of can upload the last time they were there and upload photos and other route descriptions, so you can kind of get up-to-date information on the conditions as well. And so it's a really kind of live function that, you know, is being updated consistently. So Freebie is a really great one to get information from, route information, and that is the main one that I use. And it is translated in English, so you can get it English language. Guidebooks, the only English language guidebook, I've got some bits to the side here, ta-da! So this is the English language sport climbing guidebook, and it's in Slovenian and English, and it's really comprehensive, and it's got great topos and great photos, and it's just, if you're going to go climbing on a climbing trip, this is the book to get, because it's a really great resource.
Yeah, great, thank you. Hopefully that's helped with that question. Moving on to the IML side of things now, Peter Levat has asked, what was the most challenging part of the summer assessment?
So the summer assessment is definitely, I think, getting over your own head game. Like for me, trusting in the skills that I developed and trusting in the knowledge that I had, and combining it all into that kind of intense environment was the trickiest thing, trusting in my own skills. You know, you do need to have a really comprehensive knowledge of nature and the environment. And that was something that I spent a lot of time learning about and researching. So in the summer, you know, yes, you need to do all of the things to help your group have a safe, happy day out in the mountains. And part of that is the nature knowledge. And my alpine flowers knowledge before I started the IML journey was not great. And since I've started it, I feel like I've learned loads, and it's not just enhanced my days out, but you know, it's been really essential for the qualification. And so combining that and kind of being able to let that information flow rather than feeling like, you know, you've memorized a few facts and you can kind of relay them, I think was the hardest thing. You know, being able to feed that into your legs as a leader fluidly, as well as doing all of the other things that you need to do to demonstrate that you're going to be safe with a group in the mountains. So yeah, I think combining all of that knowledge together and then facilitating it is the most challenging thing. But really it was just trusting yourself and making sure you know how much work you put in and giving yourself the best chance to showcase it.
Thank you. Some great tips there. Hopefully that's really helpful for everyone going through their IML journey. Last question from Dawn, saying, have you skied as well as snowshoeing? I guess ski touring routes, are they the same as the snowshoeing routes? Because I think you had said that snowshoeing is quite new in Slovenia and you were expecting ski tourers lots. Yeah,
so you don't generally see many people out snowshoeing, but you do see more people out ski touring, and it's definitely more popular. I think that there is kind of a bit of an attitude that's still changing there, where it's, well, why would I be on snowshoes when I could be on skis? And that's changing, and you're seeing more and more people on snowshoes now. But skiing's really popular, so you'll have no trouble finding loads of really great ski touring routes in Slovenia, and they're marked on the maps. So you'll see they're marked in blue on the maps. So you can really kind of get some maps of Julian Alps and start to see where those routes go. And it's quite often I use those to help guide my snowshoeing routes, but obviously changing it up to suit the activity that I'm doing. But yeah, you'll find some great ski touring out there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for answering those questions. At the end of this, Lizzie's got contact for Mikaela, and so I'm sure she won't mind if you get in touch with any Slovenia specific questions as our resident expert on Slovenia. So thank you again. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge, and it's been amazing having you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, everyone, and great talking to you.
So thanks so much again, Mikaela. Fantastic talk. And if you guys enjoyed tonight, you might enjoy joining the next couple talks if you're new to us. So up next on the 16th of February, we have Susanna Almasari. She's going to discuss alpine winter climbing, the power of belief, and the fear of failure. And then the last in our winter series of Alpine Stories talk, we have Kath James joining us again, where she's going to share stories from her adventures in remote and majestic Scottish peaks and the rare occasions when North Wales is in for some wintertime fun. So hopefully you join us for those. All of the presentations, all of the talks are recorded, and you can find them on our website, womensalpineadventureclub.com, and look under the Alpine Stories section. And then if you don't follow us already, find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram, tell all your friends, sign up to the newsletter. That's where you're going to get the latest information, in case you don't already know. And then this is some information, so you can get in touch, follow Mikaela on Instagram as well, and find her on Facebook as well. We wanted to give a shout out to the How people. find them on Facebook and Instagram, and that is a charity group that she works with, and there's some really, really amazing people. So get in touch with them, find out more. And just thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We had such a great turnout tonight. Thank you so much for engaging and asking questions. We hope that everybody is safe, and we look forward to seeing you again really, really soon. Bye, everybody.